I've spoken to 2 people this week, and they're mature Christians, and they've been walking with the Lord for some time, and they have a significant decision to make. It's not, some of this stuff is not, you know, will it be KFC after church or Macca's? It's not that kind of stuff. We're talking about, you know, moving and changing and all those sorts of big things. So this question is being asked by Christians today. What is the most important thing? Just can you nail it down? Because sometimes when we have a decision to make, sometimes we need it condensed down into a very simple package. The will of God. We have this phrase, love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, with all your strength. Jesus is quoting Deuteronomy 6, 4 and 5. The last question I just posed is about the will of God. And I would suggest to you today, and I think this is a box. Kimberly, can we have the next one? Oh, yeah, and the next one? Oh, I was supposed to make this a box. Sorry about that. So I read this phrase to you because it's really important. I want you to grab this. What I'm going to talk about now, loving the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, with all your strength. Attending to our love of God, attending to our love of God in its completeness, will engage us to everything that pleases Him. What I'm saying there is, attending to our love of God will automatically, if you attend to that, it will automatically manifest in what pleases Him. If you're attending to that, that's number one. This has to be right. It's just the way it works. So if I get around and I spend time with God and I quiet myself and I seek Him over time, whatever, it doesn't matter, or whatever means that you use to get close to God, if I do that and my nose is towards heaven, I don't have to worry about the steps that I'm going to take. Should I go left? Should I go right? It just doesn't matter. Because if I'm attending to that, that will get this right. Because as I get into God and become saturated, that was the word I wanted, saturated. As I become saturated by God, the presence of God, what His Word says, get grabbing His Spirit in my life. So when I take steps of life, whether they be relational steps or whether they mean employment steps or whether they mean whatever it happens to be, wherever you're life, whatever you're living, whatever you're doing, it doesn't matter. If I'm saturated in that, when this goes on, this is just right. The trouble is, it comes back to that verse I was talking about earlier, about not everything in prayer. If you don't do that, you're not spending the saturation, you don't get saturated, you don't get His mind, you don't get His empowerment, and then you get here, and this is like, this is it. This is the 40 years in the desert. That's what it is, because you're wondering, oh, should I go left, or should I go right, and you try a few things, you go, no, God wasn't in that, and you're over here, and you couldn't find Him there. And that's what it is. So if you have a problem today, you have a unsure or whatever, this is your answer to that problem. This here. Not the specific answer to what you needed an answer to, the question you needed an answer to, not that. Today, this is the answer that will fit every question that will be posed to you today. Saturation in Him. You get that right, and then this just carries on. And so this is what this is talking about. Loving the Lord your God with all of your heart, with all of your soul, with all your mind, with all your strength. Now let's go back to the Old Testament, Deuteronomy 6. It's very important what's hidden in there. Here we have, in Deuteronomy, God is making a covenant with His people. So, a covenant, young people, can you help me for a moment? A covenant is a deal. And we have a covenant right now. It's called marriage. And we give rings in the exchange of the promises they're made. So we stand there one day before Pastor Rodney Watson, and the dog's barking outside, and that was like you should hear the tape of the wedding. Were you there? No, you weren't. Sorry, Cameron. But it was at Rodney's church, and when we play back the thing we got, the dog through the whole thing is barking away. So the dog, "Wah, wah, wah," and we're doing the, and what's happening here, aside from the dog, is we make a promise. And Rodney's standing here, and he's got his Bible, and he's probably, well, maybe the manual or whatever, and he's saying, "Belinda, what do you promise to him today?" And then, I promise to, X, Y, Z. And then he comes to me and he says, "What do you promise today here?" And so I stand there and say, "I promise to do X, Y, and Z." And he says, "Would you like to exchange something to make that promise visible and real and remind us?" And we do the exchange of rings. And so we have a covenant. We have a deal. And so we live in that deal. That's what we do with each other. Now that's exactly what God was doing back here with his people in the Old Testament. He was saying, "I want to make a deal with you. And I'm going to be your God, and you will be my people." And so he set the parameters up for that, and he said, "Here's how it works." And so he gave them the commandments, and they're all listed there. But at the end of it, they're summed up in this thing here. It's summed up in this passage that we're looking at. I don't know where you've got it there, but Deuteronomy 5, verses 6. Deuteronomy 6, verses 4 and 5. This is something special because this puts all of those conditions down into one nice little neat phrase, which is the phrase that Jesus is quoting. So Jesus gets this phrase, and this phrase, I'm not going to get into it. I've got it ready, but I think it's just going to bore you. This phrase actually has a certain name, and this phrase is actually what the Jewish people used to use. They used to chant it a number of times a day because that was so important to them, because that one phrase, those 13 words in the original text, it's about 16 now in ours, but in the original way it was written, those 13 words were everything that was within the contract, which was within the deal, which was within the partnership. So that was very important to them. And so you've got this fellow that's come back into Jesus' day. You've got this fellow, he comes up, his Reverend, whatever his name is, and he comes up with his Bible and he says, "Jesus, why don't you sum up? Give us a summary of this." And so what does Jesus do? He goes back to that one, and he quotes this summary of the contract that God had made with his people, which is this one here. "Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one." What this is saying at that part is, and this is what we need to get. When that phrase there, if you've got your text, please open it up to Deuteronomy 6 and have a look for yourself. Where it says, "Hear, O Israel," that is really, really super important. Because when he's there and he's going, "Hear, O Israel," what that meant to the people was automatically, as soon as they heard that, that automatically implied my obedience to that. That's what that phrase means. And so the context, what's really important in this, as it goes, "Hear, O Israel, hear, O Meribah, hear, O Richmond Street." And when you get this declaration that there is no other God other than our God, that's a declaration that gets you to obedience. We sang it this morning about how there is no one like you. There is no greater than you. So young people, in between people, not young people, get a hold of this. There is no one. This is what everything is summed up in this. There is no one, no other God before our God. There is nothing. There is no power. There is no principality. There is no nothing that is greater than our God. And if we get a hold of that revelation, when it's time to live, when it's over here, obedience is automatic. It just happens. But here's the thing. We've got to believe it. You can't fake that. You can't do that on a weekly basis by attending church each week. That won't change your life. Believe in the truth.